Okay, now we're going to move to a woman who's described as the dean of black women composers. Those of you who saw our Black Brilliance composer, where we did all black composers, we did this piece and we were so blown away by the power of it that we said, we got to do it again. It's such a beautiful work based upon spirituals. It's called the Afro-American Suite, and it's written by Undine Smith Moore. She was born in 1904 and would die in 1989. Wrote a lot of works inspired by spirituals, oratorios, big choral works, but also instrumental pieces. She was also a major teacher. For over 50 years, she taught at Virginia State College. She said once, "Teaching itself is the most important art of all." And she really did have a lot of young students composing and on the organ, which she taught as well, who were just inspired by this woman. She grew up in Petersburg, Virginia. She was the granddaughter of slaves and grew up in a very musical household. She said everybody was singing around her, and above all else, music reigned supreme. Of course, she would spend many hours at the Baptist church, the Morning Star Baptist Church. And then she started taking piano when she was 7 years old and got so good that she attended Fisk University on a scholarship for piano in Nashville, Tennessee. Fisk had been one of the university after the Civil War where the Fisk Jubilee Singers had come out of. This was the first time that spirituals had been sort of taken on the road to many parts of the country who had never heard this kind of music, and then over to Europe. In fact, the Fisk Jubilee Singers inspired many composers by taking these songs to places like England and France, and they never knew that this music had existed. They didn't know there was good American music out there, and they listened to these spirituals and realized there was something there in that work. She then, after she graduates Fisk, got a full scholarship to go to the Juilliard School of Music in New York, the first black woman who got a scholarship to go to that school. She spent the 20s in New York during the Harlem Renaissance, where she met many famous artists and poets, got a teaching degree at the Columbia University College in 1931, and her first job was as the supervisor of music in the public schools of Goldsboro, North Carolina. Did that for a couple of years, and then got invited to become the pianist and organist and composing teacher at Virginia State College. And while she was there, she helped start the Black Music Center, which unfortunately I don't think exists anymore, but was one of the first places where you sort of had a center showcasing the contributions of black composers in the United States and other parts of the world. She did have one daughter named Marie. I think Amy Beach did not have any children, so she's not a true musical mother, but we counted her as well. All the other composers here were mothers, and you will hear the story of how being a mother was not great for our final composer. Then it really it ultimately would kill her. She was the first keynote speaker at the National Congress of Black Women in Music in 1982. And she described how spirituals meant so much to her. She said, "The songs that my mother sang while cooking dinner, the melodies my father hummed after work, they moved me very deeply. In making my arrangements of spirituals, my aim was not to make something better than what they sang. I just thought they were so beautiful, and I wanted to have them experienced in a variety of ways, by concert choirs, soloists, and by instrumental groups." She went on, you'll hear in the setting of some of these, there is some dissonance, some clashing kind of chords, very tight harmonies, and then in some moments where it just builds to these incredible climaxes of great power. And she said the following about that. She said, "I have often been concerned with aspiration, the emotional intensity associated with the life of black people, as expressed in various rites of the church and black life in general. The desire for abundant, full expression, as one might anticipate or expect from an oppressed people that is determined to survive. One of the most evil effects of racism in my time was the limits that it placed upon the aspirations of black people, so that though I have been making up and creating music all of my life, in my childhood or even in college, I would never have thought of calling myself a composer or even aspiring to be one. All liberation is connected. As long as any segment of the society is oppressed, the whole society must suffer." So she was able to write some really powerful music. There's also a wonderful piece of hers which you can hear called Scenes from the Life of a Martyr that actually was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. This was a big oratorio on the life of Dr. Martin Luther King and really showcases a larger grouping of instruments and singers. But this is just, this actually piece is written for flute, cello, and piano, but we don't have a flutist, so we're going with violin, and I think it actually sounds pretty darn good on violin. Please welcome Emmanuel Borowski and his musical mother, Cecilia Barcher.